I'm Todd Pasco, and I'm a criminal defense lawyer. The purpose of this video is just to share what God has blessed me to be able to do through what I term Bible study letters. We write about 50 letters, give or take a few, each week. It's the same letter, but it goes out to about 50 individuals. It all began probably in late 2008, a young man charged with attempted murder. He, in his own words later on, told the judge he prayed to a God he did not know in his backyard, and he came to know that God through the time we had to talk. And because I was talking to him, and he went away for 2 years for that crime, I sent him, and I felt comfortable with him, and I sent him Bible studies fairly routinely. From that one individual, it fairly well grew till in April 2011, I became more comfortable with it, and I started sending regularly and offering it regularly to inmates.
I received a letter from Todd. I didn't know what it was, and I was actually kind of nervous. I thought that it was more court case documentation, something like that. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that it was a letter written by him for me that had an article and some Bible studies in it as well. I read through it, I took it to my room. I was kind of shocked and didn't really know what it was for or why he would be sending me this. I mean, this was my defense attorney. It's not like it was any kind of personal friendship or relationship at that time. And so I just thought it was a really nice gesture. It meant a lot, you know. It was just nice to know that somebody that didn't even know me took the time out of their busy schedule and their busy life to show their support and offer some encouragement to me in my situation.
And while I was in jail, Todd would send me a letter. Every week I would get a letter from Todd. My own wife didn't even write me once a week. But I would get a letter every week from Todd with a little pep talk and then some stuff from the scriptures. One of the things that makes my foundation of my sobriety so strong is that I really knew deep down in my heart of hearts that nobody really cared about me. Nobody cared, you know, for the loser alcoholic. But Todd showed a grace and love that only comes through a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that is the most powerful thing in my sobriety today, is that the only thing I can give you is what's been given to me. And that's to share my message of experience, strength, and hope through Jesus Christ.
You know, I find now that I'm doing this, that I look forward to each week when I come to write the letter. And all week long, if I'm reading something, I'm thinking, this might be appropriate, and I find the 3 or 4 best things, and I enclose them with a letter.
Well, it started August 2nd of last year. On this day, we were fixing to tear part of the old roof off for a tie-in extension. And when I got here, Herb was milling around, and Darwin had climbed up the ladder. And so when I got here, I asked him, I said, what can I do? And he says, well, come on up and throw the shingles down as I tear them off. So as I went over to the ladder, it was leaning as the ladder should, and my left foot hit the bottom rung, and my right foot hit the second rung.
And I'd just gone out to the car to get a tool when we heard the crash. And I came running back, and Darwin came down off the roof, and Pat was laying there. And I realized right away that he was pretty badly hurt, or very quickly. And so I immediately pulled out my cell phone and called 911.
And Darwin kept asking me, he says, you want me to call Mary Ann? I said, I don't know. I said, so finally I conceded to the fact that he better call her.
It was Darwin on the phone, and he said that Pat had been hurt.
I can't even begin to describe it, but I knew everything was going to be okay. Well, then at some point the ambulance came and they put me on this torture chamber backboard. Anyways, we got to the hospital, they x-rayed, they ran me through the CT scan, and
I said, what's the bad news? Might as well get that out of the way first. And he said, Pat's back is broken in 2 places. And the good news is he just has 6 broken ribs.
So he says, we can't do for you here what needs to be done, so we're going to have to ship you to Riverbend over in Eugene. And he says, you'll never make the ambulance ride, so he says, guess what? You get a helicopter ride. I thought, oh boy, and I don't even get to enjoy this. I'm back on the backboard, and we're in the helicopter. They had me wrapped up and tucked in that thing like a hot dog in a bun. And then they put me in a room, and the doctor came in, and he says, well, he says, you have 6 broken ribs, all right. He said, but your back's not broken. Well, I knew at that moment that the Lord had healed me. And then the x-ray attendant, he says, would you like to see your first CT scan? And I said, yes, I most certainly would. So they wheeled me in there, and they had a bunch of screens and computers all set up, and I didn't even have my bifocals with me, so and I needed them to see clearly. But he said, well, here is your back where it was broken in 2 places. Now, even without my glasses, I could see a break that went up like this, and then on 1 or 2 down, there was a break that went straight across, kind of wiggly. And I said, but it's not broke now. He says, mister, I don't have an answer for that. I said, well, I do.
Yo soy de Guatemala, pero vivo en Cornelius, Oregón. En el año 2008 conocimos el mensaje adventista por medio de mi suegra en un grupo pequeño, pero yo no podía ir porque yo trabajaba en la noche, pero Dios tenía un plan para mi familia. Se cerró la compañía para la cual yo trabajaba. Cerraron la compañía y mi esposa me dijo, vámonos al grupo pequeño. Y siempre me ha gustado obedecer cuando se trata de Dios. Entonces yo decidí ir al grupo pequeño. Le pedí a los hermanos que oraran por un trabajo para que yo pudiera encontrar otro empleo. Yo empecé este trabajo donde ganaba menos que estar en el desempleo, pero Dios me había mandado a este trabajo. Empecé a escuchar que tengo que dar mi diezmo y mi ofrenda, pero entonces empecé a tener dificultad porque el dinero no me alcanzaba. Todos los sábados en el culto leían un versículo. Cada uno dé como propuso en su corazón, no con tristeza ni por necesidad, porque Dios ama al dador alegre. Platicando con mi esposa, ya para entonces ella también no trabajaba, se había lastimado en el trabajo. Entonces le dije, mira, estamos dando nuestro diezmo, pero vamos a hacer un pacto con Dios. Vamos a dar un porcentaje de nuestra ofrenda. Y no pasó como 2 o 3 meses cuando viene a mi mente otro de los versículos que están en la palabra de Dios, en Malaquías 3:10, que dice, y derramaré bendiciones sobre vosotros hasta que sobreabunde. Y ese versículo llegó a mi mente cuando un día mi supervisor me dijo, Israel, la otra semana vas a ver una diferencia en tu cheque. Cuando yo abro ese cheque, me voy dando cuenta que el Señor me dobló ese porcentaje. En la actualidad mi esposa no trabaja. Soy el único que trabajo en la casa, pero no ha hecho falta techo, ni comida, ni ropa en nuestro hogar. Todo gracias a nuestro Dios y que es el Todopoderoso.
And when I came down here to Brookings, I was homeless for 1.5 years when I first got here. That's what gave me the affinity for homeless people. And after I got my life together a little bit with the help of some people in this town that helped me get off of alcohol and drugs, that I wanted to pass that legacy on to other people.
Ernie came up with the idea of these community kitchens, and it was a wonderful idea, and I'm glad he brought it to our pastor so that we could get it started.
Really had the dream of feeding people in our community. He came in, dropped the idea in my lap, We went through with the board approved it.
You can always tell when God's behind something because it just works without any problem at all. And these soup kitchens and community kitchens have been going strong for about 4 years now. And we have one every day of the week except Sunday.
I talked to the people in this church quite a bit about, starting a soup kitchen, and I came with another friend of mine, and we told them we were going to start the soup kitchen, and we'd do all the work if they just let us use the facility.
I came to Brookings in 2006. I was a retired French chef from California, and when I retired, I decided that I wanted to serve my community, that I wanted to give back a lot of the blessings that I had received in my life.
They let me open the first soup kitchen in '09. It kind of expanded into, we have now 5 soup kitchens in this town, 6 counting the one at the school, and we're working on another church to start doing an evening meal on Sunday. We couldn't have accomplished half of what happened in this town on our own strength. God led us through every step of the way.
We have been going about 2.5 years, and it's a really big blessing. The only fellowship we have is our lunch, and we love to come and meet new people and talk to them and make them feel comfortable, and we're kind of like the couple that meets and greets. We really love it and appreciate them putting this on.
But it wouldn't have been possible without the help of all the volunteers that we got.
I have to say, of all the things I've ever done, this is probably one of the biggest blessings.
That's kind of the thing that just really makes me happy as a pastor. It really gives me joy to see people get involved in ministry, because that's what it's all about.
We are at Friday Night Live here at Sunset Christian Fellowship. Friday Night Live is designed for students grades 6 through 12.
This is kind of like a little get-together for all the kids that go to the Adventist schools and go to this church, and we can invite our friends.
Friday Night Live came about because of conversations between students and staff.
It's just a fun place to hang out, and we get to be outside or inside and doing games and stuff.
We started Friday Night Live in January of 2013, and we've had a core group of 15 to 25 students that come every week to enjoy fellowship.
We do this thing where we kind of start out the Sabbath kind of strong with together.
A typical night for Friday Night Live is gathering at 7 o'clock with snacks and games.
We usually go inside and play games or play with a football, like a foam one. And then if it's like sunny outside, then we usually do outside sports and pretty much like have snacks usually.
And typically about 8 o'clock we'll break into a worship session for 15 to 20 minutes.
Sometimes the adults do devotion, but other times they have the high schoolers do it.
The key purpose of Friday Night Live is to keep our high school students at the church.
It's definitely spiritual and fun. We have a little bit of a worship thought, which tonight I'm in charge of, and we just kind of talk to each other, to God, and we get to know Him through each other.
We notice that as kids graduate from 8th grade and kind of go their separate ways to various public schools and private schools and, away boarding academy, that they need to feel connected to Sunset still. And this is a really good way to keep kids connected to our church.
We have a physician in the church, Dr. Heidinger, who has been very excited about seeing his practice as more of a ministry than just a profession.
I started studying concepts of medical evangelism. And the more I studied, the more I realized that God was calling me to be a true medical evangelist. I found myself giving my resignation to the secular group that I was working in, and I started my own solo practice in the year 2008.
Right after we came, I had one of our physicians that approached us He's a member of the church here, and he asked me if he could partner with me as someone that could give me some leads for Bible studies.
And the combination of having the Bible worker and having a physician that's willing to see his practice as a ministry has been a really exciting thing. About half of my wife's Bible studies are coming from contacts with Dr. Heidinger.
On the surface, you might not know any difference between my office and any other office. However, if you started to look a little bit deeper, you would notice substantial differences. I had a literature rack in my office. My patients enjoyed the literature and availed themselves of it. My medical assistant in particular was very outreach oriented, to the point where I had patients calling my medical assistant not for help on medications, not for a prescription, not for a question, but asking for prayer.
And the way this works is that he basically talks about spiritual things with his patients, and when he senses that they might be open to having Bible studies, he'll ask them, and then he'll contact Linda, and she contacts them, and that's a very, we might call a warm lead. They're very open and excited, and so we've seen some really great things come from this.
I have found in my practice, just as a novice and essentially teaching myself how to reach out to others, that it's a very doable thing and not difficult to do. And I would really encourage each one of you, in whatever vocation you are, to share your love for Jesus in your interactions with others. In the medical community, I'm ready to say that every physician should be referring one or two individuals, their patients, one or two of their patients, for Bible studies per month. I am finding there's that much interest, people are that hungry for God, and it's a very doable thing. So I would encourage you, and I would even challenge you to sharpen your skills as you reach out for God and as you share your love for God with those around you.
As starting off as a child, my father was a military man. He was in the Air Force, so he was gone a lot. My mom had to work a lot, so my grandfather would take care of us. He lived with us, and he drank beer often, daily. I had access to alcohol growing up. At age 11, my brother talked me into stealing cigarettes. One day, after coming back from a run to get cigarettes, I asked my brother what my take was. You know, I finally realized that, hey, I'm doing this for free. So he just threw a pack of cigarettes at me, so I started smoking cigarettes. I ended up getting into drugs, sneaking out, going to parties. When I became 21, I totally hit the bar scene. I was singing in a rock band, and then one day I woke up and I had an argument with my girlfriend. And so she broke up with me, took everything I had. This was like the third relationship I'd been through, you know, it's the same MO, you know. I'd mess it up and I'd lose everything all over again. And so I come to a point in my life where, man, I'm tired of this. What am I doing that's so wrong, you know? And I come to realize that I needed to get into a recovery center or a rehab. I talked to the caseworker and I was crying, you know, and I just came to a point in my life where, oh man, anything I could do wasn't good enough, you know, I couldn't stay sober. And I was telling her this, and she had asked me if I had heard about the local recovery home. So I got into the house. I didn't really know a whole lot about the program, but it turned out to be a faith-based program. I had to go to church, you know, that was all part of the program. The specific church that I was going to has a Last Days of Jesus pageant. And what they do is they act out the last days of Jesus. So one of the directors from the play came to me and asked me if I would be John. I had to actually see what he did for me in order for it to seal me. I saw him up there on the cross. I saw him speaking to me as I stood there with Mary. You know, I felt like I became John. And my tears started to flow, and I realized, I finally got it, it clicked. And then I went to a Bible study. I ended up meeting my fiance, and she invited me to the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Dalles. I was invited back to the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Dalles for their Share Him seminar. and they had asked me if I'd be willing to give 10 minutes each night, 10-minute testimony each night for the seminar, and I did. So I was able to sit in on those seminars as well, and the doctrine hadn't changed. It was the same information that David Ashrick had given to me in the Discover Prophecy seminar. Through that Share Him seminar, I decided I was going to become a Seventh-day Adventist.
We started God's Closet because we had a little girl that came to Vacation Bible School and then also to a summer camp later on, and we figured out she was wearing the same set of clothing every single day. So a few of us moms got together, we bought her a few sets of clothing, we got some stuff from our own children, brought it to her after having asked her mom if it was okay, and the mom's response was absolutely. The transformation we saw in that little girl was genuinely amazing. She went from hanging her head, always looking at her feet, being belligerent, aggressive, in general just fairly unpleasant, to once we had given her a new set of clothes, you could tell it absolutely changed her outlook on life. Somebody cared about her, somebody was looking out for her. And that was a really life-changing experience for me, and I thought I could afford to go out and buy her a couple outfits, but how many other children are there in the community? I can't afford to go out and buy them all new clothes. After a friend and I had really had this burden that we wanted to help other children in Clark County like we had helped our little girl from VBS, we thought, is there something out there already? Is there another role model that we could look at? And sure enough, there was. In Spokane, there's an organization called God's Closet. And as we looked at it more and looked into it, we decided that was the route we wanted to go. So how does God's Closet work? And where do we get all of these clothes? We get them from two places. We get them from personal donations from our church members and also from those in our community that have heard about us. But the main place we get them from is consignment shops.
I heard about God's Closet through Facebook. About a year and a half ago, I was going through Facebook and saw an ad, and I decided that I'd come to the event, gathered up some clothes from here, which was wonderful, went home, and I gathered up my children's 2 small clothes and donated them so I can give back.
And I really like that people I see shopping here on the day of our event are most of the time people who volunteered the day before, and what they've told me is that they're happy that they can volunteer and give back. They are happy to receive the clothes, but they're so happy to give back and be able to be a part of this in more than one way.
On average, we have 250 families that come to each of our shopping events. That translates into over 550 bags of clothes given away at our quarterly events.
I had another lady who said, I have very recently been through a divorce. My husband's been an awful divorce, and I have 3 small boys. I have no way to support them. And I came to your event last time, and that is the only way my children have been clothed throughout this entire winter, is solely from the stuff that I got from this event. You have no idea what an answer to prayer you were in my life. And I have heard, I can't even tell you how many times, the comment, I cannot believe there is an organization or a church that's doing what you guys are doing. You have no idea what a blessing you are being to us in the community. I want to know how I can give back. How can I come and volunteer? How can I help out?
When I first saw my son, and when they gave him and I was holding him in my arms, I looked into his eyes and he looked into my eyes, and this sensation of joy and just this really good, almost prideful, it's like, this is my son, wow. And I remember thinking at that moment that that's what God must have felt like when He created me. We finally got to bring him home. So we brought him home for 1 week. And that 1 week was just awesome. I took photos with him, he was smiling. He was just such a happy, joyful baby. So we went up to him, and he just wasn't being himself, and so we took him to the ER. And They checked him, you know, they did what they needed to do, and they couldn't figure out what was going on at the moment. Slowly, things just got a little bit more complicated, you know, as the time went on. They narrowed it down to this disease called neonatal hemochromatosis. It's an autoimmune disorder that my wife carries, and it attacks the liver specifically. There was a moment where we started to kind of panic, but our prayers were extensive, and they were just raw, and they were just the most sincere prayers I've ever prayed ever before. But through that, I learned what it was to not be selfish in my prayers. That's something that I had never learned in my faith. I had never seen that side of my faith before. So we get the call from the doctor. They say, you know, your son has this disease and he's gonna need a liver transplant. And that was hard to swallow. But again, God was so merciful, and he was giving us so much strength that I myself realized that this strength was from the Lord at that time. My wife was smiling, I was smiling, and I didn't even know why. And within 3 days, everything just went downhill. It was tough because that was the first time I had ever seen anyone die. I had never been around death ever. And for it to be my own son, that it took a while for me to process that. So it came to a point where recently, this is actually recently, where God just really started to heal my heart and show me a different aspect of his grace. But what I do know is that there is a joy that comes that I have no idea where it comes from. And it's a daily process. It involves allowing God to fill you with his love and his grace every day. But our prayers now are just, God, we know that anything that comes our way, anything that is good is going to come from you. And so our trust is completely in you. And that brings a lot of peace for us.